So a lot of people have been asking me what is the most overpowered faction to play, and this answer is very simple, and that is the USSR. To be exact, the USSR in Tier 3. This is one of the most overpowered faction to play because of a lot of things, but it is a combination of almost everything that I'm gonna list in this video. In this video, we're gonna be talking about the most overpowered faction as of right now, especially after the new Enlisted changes. So without further ado, strap in and let's get started with the video. Starting off with the changes, most of the stuff have been decreased a BR for the USSR, but not only the USSR, Germany, the United States, and Japan. For example, the United States, the Sten Mark II, have been moved down to BR1, so that's great. And of course, other stuff for the Japanese and the Germans are pretty much similar, but the USSR has become one of the most overpowered things as of right now. To be exact, the USSR in BR3. Originally, it was one of the most overpowered factions as of BR3, but as of right now, it is the most overpowered faction as of BR3. And there are a lot of reasons for it. And in today's video, we're just gonna get started with the reasons. Starting with the tanks. The tanks, you have the KV-1, and of course, the infamous T-34. To be exact, the T-34 ZST, the T-34 1941, and a regular T-34, all of which are at BR3. And of course, you have the infamous KV-1 LE-11, all of which are insanely overpowered. Let's just be honest. Almost nothing can penetrate it unless you are side on, and if you're front on, almost nothing can penetrate it. The KV-1, its only downside is being slow, but that can be easily mitigated if you just stay behind and you shoot. You also have the Panzerfaust 60, which at this BR is pretty good for taking out enemy tanks, so that's great. You also do have a flamethrower, you also have a machine gun that is pretty decent. The DP-20 is pretty decent. You also have a huge variety of submachine guns. These could be from previous tiers, such as the PPS-43, the newly added Eurogun submachine gun, the PPS-H-41 Oberets, and of course the PPS-H-41 Box, and a combination of rifles, such as the SVT-38 and the SVT-38 Sniper, all of which, all that I've stated above, are pretty decent. As a matter of fact, they're almost overpowered. This is not even to mention the planes. For those who don't know, the Soviet Union as of right now have one of the most overpowered set of planes for BR3. If the tanks were not good enough, then the planes should surely make you frightened in fear. For example, you have the IL series, the IL-2M, and the IL-237, of which they're pretty decent. You have the LA-5FN, which is a pretty good plane if you ask me. The PE series, which you have the PE-231 and the PE-3, of which have a lot of bombs. The Yak-3, which is pretty good in almost every dimension. And you have the Yak-19, which has a pretty good gun. And of course, you have a Lend-Lease bomber of the A-20 version. So literally, you are packed. From tanks, to planes, to guns, to machine guns, to anti-tank weapons, to everything. You are almost packed. And as of right now, with the new addition, such as the Eurogun SMG, everyone is playing USSR, and the USSR as of right now is pretty heated. A lot of players are playing it, and a lot of players are not suffering because of it, mainly because they're on the USSR side, and a lot of players are also suffering because of it, because they're playing the Germans, which at this tier, as of right now, the Germans at BR3 don't have a lot of good stuff. And looking on the German side, most of their tanks can be one-shot penned by the KV-1 or the T-34. Doesn't matter what T-34 we're talking about, everything can be penned. The machine guns are decent or similar, and almost everything else is decent or similar, and their planes are a little bit lacking. But in the grand scheme of things, the Soviet Union trumps the Germans in almost every category, whereas the Germans trump in one or two categories, if not any at all. Needless to say, the Soviet Union is insanely good at this tier. The tank is just always a gamble and a hardship to take out. You really cannot even use a TNT because that armor is so insane that TNT doesn't even work. And needless to say, every other thing is hard to kill or there's no effective way to counter unless you use human wave tactics. That said, there is a fatal flaw of the USSR at BR3, and that is almost every faction's gonna have this flaw, and that is the player numbers. If you pop into a game in which you only have a few players, this is mainly due to, once again, the player issue. So what ends up happening as of right now is that every week a faction is important. For example, as of right now, the BR3 USSR as of this week is very good. And as of last week, the BR5 Germany was really good. So needless to say, the player issue is one of those issues in which Enlisted has to worry about. But in pure statistics, if we're just talking about pure statistics, BR3 USSR is an insane balance. So, without further ado, this is the most overpowered faction in the game. Good tanks, good planes, good weapons, good anti-tank weapons. Heck, we always have a full list of good stuff for the USSR at this tier. So without further ado, have a great day guys, and I'll see you in the next one.